I think my younger self was striving to be complete, was shadow hunting, was very like, I'm gonna
Hmm.
dig
Hmm.
into every trauma, I'm gonna break every boundary, I'm gonna go there. And now the Tao has softened and I kind of sit by the river a bit more of like life is, it's still precious. It's repeatless. It's a precious moment that we have. And so I want to use it well, but I want to use it without striving that causes inflammation, the striving that constricts, the striving that needs something. And art has always been my teacher for that because I don't really need to be on the Hollywood star or something like that. It's like that's not the goal of art making.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Going Out Looking In, the podcast where we're exploring the human experience through conscious conversations. My name is Maxi, I'm your host, and today I have the great honor, privilege, and pleasure to welcome no other, I can't believe I say this, than the CEO of the Gene Keys, Elijah Parker. Elijah is a Gene Keys guide, ambassador, and a core member of the Gene Keys team. And as CEO, Elijah takes a lead role in the strategy, operations, and creative direction for the Gene Keys. Talented in both left and right brain modalities, Elijah weaves years of experience in the fields of design, storytelling, event production, and intermodal expressive arts. He has dedicated the last 14 years to integrating the language of the Gene Keys deeply into his life. This has given him a unique ability to transmit profound truths in spontaneous and elegant manner, sharing reflections from his own personal journey of cultivation and growth, and offering intuitive readings for his clients. Elijah facilitates both personal and group sessions with the Gene Keys for transformation in relationships, activating creative projects, and discovering the gifts inside life's challenges. With all that being said, beautiful people, I can't believe the journey this podcast has been on over the last 4 years to be sitting here today with people like the CEO of the Gene Keys, a wisdom, theory, and contemplative library of transmissions has been an incredible journey for me. I'm entirely grateful for you to be listening, and that sets the stage for everything to come. So there's nothing else I'd like to share other than thank you so much for being here. I'm wishing you great insights as always with myself and Elijah Parker. Just inviting us to shut down the eyes if that is safe for you in the environment you're in, feeling the connection to the ground, maybe feeling your feet on the floor and your body leaning against the chair you're sitting in. For all the listeners as well, if you're driving, obviously don't close your eyes, but still bring awareness and attention to the physical form, how you are here in this moment right now. And the breath just comes and goes naturally, and inviting a softening in posture, in inner inner posture as well, a softening of the muscles of the state of how we are showing up right now, dropping all the agenda, the to-dos, places to be, people to interact with, all of that can wait right now so we can be fully present here. And with that said, just inviting 3 deep breaths that we're going to take together, in through the nose and out through the mouth in 3, 2, 1, and inhale. And out. Inhale again, Anali. And out, Skilama. Last one, deepest inhale of the day, Anali. Hold at the top. And out, Skilama. Just offering some words here. Beautiful creation on this day. Please facilitate a loving connection between Elijah and myself. Guard our tongues so we can speak what needs to be said, so we can hear what needs to be heard, we can share what needs to be shared. May we remember the honey, the endless gifts of life, the breath in our lungs, the food in our tummies, the roof of our heads, the ground underneath our feet. May we remember all of those coming before us, all of those who are here with us right now, and all of those coming after us. May we indulge in the nectar of sweet divine creation. We thank you, we thank you, we thank you. And with that, we're inviting us back into the space, slowly opening up the eyes. Okay. Thank you for doing this with me. Yeah, so on this day, what's most alive for you, Elijah?
Well, the beautiful drop in of breath and prayer and words. I think for me, that's what's alive is, yeah, the gratitude of the simple things, feeling the vastness of the journey that I've been on in my life and in the last few months and years, and just that ever present groundedness that comes from sharing presence. As if we can sip a cup of tea from across the plains. It's really good to just be here with you. That's what's alive right now.
Beautiful. Yeah, feeling the same way. Just came back from Milan with the men's weekend and still in the integration of that. And yeah, really present, really, yeah. There's like this state in between being like very activated, going towards something, and maybe potentially also running away from something else. So it's like from to or away from. And then there's like in the middle, there's this space of just here. So yeah, tuning into this conversation, I was like, am I too relaxed about it? Should I be more activated? And then I was like, I don't think so. Yeah. So yeah, Elijah, you just been moving. Is that Is that
Yeah.
correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I've
So,
been journeying across the states, back from Pennsylvania over to the West Coast again, back to more of my home, not my original home, but more of my soul's home in Oregon.
beautiful. And how are you feeling about that?
You know, I was been reflecting a lot because it's like spirals, right? We go in life spirals. We return to places we were when we were another person, or we return to other states and relationships. And so I'm coming back as a different person, but recognizing and recalling parts of my soul of when I was much younger traveling through this area, which would have been 16 years ago, traveling through this particular area of Oregon. And it was a portal at a time in my life that was I was living more as a lucid dream. I was young and wide-eyed with all of the possibilities of the universe, and I was had less responsibility as youth also brings, of not having certain things of family and home and business and these new places. And so I'm returning and getting to feel both that like innocent, incredible spark of adventure, and also recognizing that I'm like having to stretch again, of feeling the fear of a leap, feeling a new threshold because the world is changing and I've been changing, and just always humbled that the mystery never stops giving me opportunities to trust into life, and very grateful for like seeing how grounded I am now, while also feeling humbled that the life will always ask me to grow in uncomfortable places, to share more love. So that's really where I'm at in my inner threshold right now.
Mm, yeah. Thank you. Just letting that land. Mm. So, what's home for you?
Right now, home is my beautiful wife, my cats, and home is a place where creativity meets sanctuary. And because I work from home, right? I'm in a transient home right now, but I've made it home because, my family is here and my creation can go out, but I also have that hermit cave to come in. So it's a safety to feel that even though there's so much doing out in the world that needs my attention, that there is a space where I can actually turn off the lights, turn inward and rest. And I've always had my creativity inside my home. It's just been natural of like I'd never go to work. I've never had that job of like I either travel for work, which is also home abroad, right? We bring that sense of whatever my practice. My tea is a very clear like everyday home energy. But now I'm asking, what's the home for my family? Because I want to have a child and I want to have, I want to have community again. I've been a little separate from local community. So now I get to feed a biome and feed gardens and have neighbors and discover both edges and growth and sustainability and resilience in a time of change. So now home isn't selfish home where I'm safe. Home is where am I plugged into a biome that's serving more than myself, but also I get to participate in a home that's bigger than just myself, which I feel pretty confident in my cells these days of I know who I am, but it's scarier to say who am I in the whole and where do I find that home inside the whole when we're often so separate as human beings on a broader level.
Mm, beautiful. Yeah, I love that question myself. Like, what is that? Like, what is home? Is it is it a feeling? Is it a person? Is it a location? What is it? And you touched upon numerous things, right? Like, yeah, it's a space. It's a and you can create that pretty much. Maybe not. I mean, potentially anywhere. And then it's the people you surround yourself with, and you said creativity meets sanctuary. Yeah. Mm. What what does creativity exactly, where does that show up in your life like most significantly?
Ooh, I like that question. I often um, what sparked right now is we're talking about home, and you shared your beautiful Gene Keys profile, and the SQ has elements of home, right? Homecoming to the heart, and also to creativity, to the innocent, mythical creation of our soul. And you and I share Gene Key 28.
Yeah,
Actually, we
yeah,
both have
the
that
same one.
SQ. So, what is creativity and what is home? Like for me, the mythos is what's creativity. Is I love to tell stories, and so music is one way I tell stories. D&D and fantasy and imagination is one way I tell stories. The Gene Keys is obviously it's fueled by poetry, myth, archetype, but it's really the act of myth making and meaning making that we humans get to do in this wild, turbulent, purposeless world of like if my mind was in charge, I would be terrified of the weight and the heaviness of how do we find our purpose inside a world that's constantly reflecting non-love. And the immortal laughter at the heart of my creativity is that I've part of my soul knows I've been in every door of possibility. I've been in many different like lifetimes and dreams and experiences. Even in this body, I've like lived several lifetimes, it feels. And there was always a love, a laughter, a golden thread of that immortal Buddha laughing at the end of the hallway of all things. That's like home and creativity. So that's kind of what I think creativity means is can I not even channel? Because creativity doesn't have to be art. I think that's an important distinction is like creativity is the genius, is the spirit of openness and love and that flows. And art is sometimes a product of creativity. So I think today the immortal laughter of that soul that remembers it's always home, that's the source of my creativity. And then the totality is making myths of meeting our dark side, meeting our light side, meeting our symbols and telling that story together.
Mm. Yeah, well, I mean, basically, no matter what we're gonna touch in like this conversation, whenever I'll be speaking, it'll be influenced by the Gene Keys because it's literally influencing everything I do. And so within creativity also, like it offered a completely new framework for me where it's like a way of being nearly, right? So every task, every action, like my inner posture can
Mm.
come from a place of creativity, meaning it's a yeah, it's like it's like a it's like I have a choice. Like that's how it feels to me. Like being creative means I have a choice on how I show up in the world, how I respond to the world, and maybe see the world through a different lens that I have been previously. I have a choice of showing up tomorrow differently in a conversation. And that can be creativity, right? To me. So yeah, and then there's the more obvious things like the guitar hanging in the background or the drums in my basement or whatever, like what people would normally associate with creativity. But I totally agree to what you shared. Like a creative way in business for me ignites growth or can. There's so much potential there because you offer like an existing structure, maybe a whole new pathway where great opportunities lie, and you just haven't seen it before because you approached it in a very narrow way. But opening up is like, oh, getting creative with how we
Mm.
approach it, right? Um, yeah. How does that land with you?
I love that you've brought it in because it's about relationship again, like how to be creative with this action or this person or this business. Now it's an approach to life as opposed to a finite, defined activity. And I think that creative approach to our challenges is a really great one because it's like, okay, I already have this challenge. Now I get to approach it with freshness, with even adventure, right? It's like creativity means actually that blank canvas or that wrong stroke or that wrong note isn't the end of the song. Jazz is constantly teaching us you're only one note away, as Victor Wooten would say. You're only one note away from the melody. And in fact, the grit is actually what makes it human, authentic, beautiful. We get the hero's journey. And that's true in a relationship dynamic or in a business decision. It's like, okay, here's our crisis or here's our challenge. Or even with growth, maybe growth isn't the goal, but how I make this business decision. I often have to do that in my business. Of like, I won't always make the right decision economically. I won't always make the right decision that everybody's happy. That'll never happen, actually. But how I make that decision is a authority that I actually get to choose, even when governments and big systems that I'm have to be in connection with, they'll make their choices, and billionaire tech companies will make their choices, and I have to make a choice. My core vocation is integrity. So if I don't make
Mm.
that choice with integrity, the how, then I lose myself. I get subsumed in the shadow, and then I usually have the universe come knocking to course correct me a little bit. So creativity doesn't always feel fun, even. It can be. It's the invitation for joy, but it is also the willingness to create with life, right? It is the mana prima of this world. Instead of being victimized by what I have is the beginning of what I get to be. And I think that's really beautiful. You brought that. It's an approach to all of those situations, and in some ways it's one of the few things we have as an inner authority, is how we create with life, because I can't control what the weather's going to do and how things are going to impact the world around me, but I do get to choose the magic of my how.
Mm. Woo. Yeah, I feel that. Um, and yeah, integrity. Let's talk about integrity as well. It's very important. Uh, yeah, it's what does that even mean? But before we do so, with the um, with what you just shared, um, I feel like it's our human nature to be able to adjust, right? Like we are such an adaptive species, and within that, like adapting to the world and to life seems to me the most innovative and creative thing you can do, because nature, for example, is so creative, and it'll throw so many things at us to see how well we can adapt. So actually, I would say creation pushes us in a way of like to be creative as a whole species, maybe, right? With new challenges and with new things arising, then and like you said, right? How do we choose to respond to that? Like, are we complaining about that? Like, well, it's getting hotter, it's getting colder, it's getting wetter, it's getting what? Or are we finding new ways of resourcing energy, working with the elements, right? And all of that for me is, like you said, like a that's style as well. Like, another jinky thing, yeah. So, man, I love it. Um, and yeah, with integrity, so we talk about that all the time. Like I'm in men's work, so there's a bunch of like within the whole masculine energetic space. There's a lot of talk about values and integrity and what does that mean to you. And so I'm curious. Yeah, first of all, what does it mean to you, and then we can see where that goes.
Yeah, and the gene key that of integrity has taught me a lot about, and it's reflected. It's been a mirror for me of what does integrity mean, because like everything we're talking about, I don't think any value or word can live as a stuck silo of this is now integrity and it's a box and it has these boundaries and that's always going to be it. And integrity always wants to challenge that because it's like, yeah, if it's not in that box, it's not an integrity. That's the nature of the boundary condition. But the shadow is judgment, and it looks at the cracks, and it only looks at the cracks. So I either judge myself, which is a huge one I do, of just I was listening to many different teachers have said this, but I was listening to a particular guy the other day, and he was talking about we can't afford as humans in a modern capitalist society to make ethical decisions. Because even when we try to make a truly ethical decision, you are participating or not participating in systemic issues that have created incredible levels of economic disparity and environmental harm and moral, levels of gray. So how do we live in integrity in a world that's not set up for that word of integrity? Because there are these forces pulsing that shadow consciousness at such a systemic level. Now, judgment just sits there, and I just, God, every dollar I spend, every choice of word I use, every step that I take, I'm putting a wound into the earth. That's what self judgment can do. Ugh, I'm not enough. I'll never do it right. And the critic corrupts itself and it goes into that crack. Or it spends all its time yelling at the cracks in the cauldron and being like, don't you see how wrong you are to have made that crack? And that crack will never be healed and never be done, and you're wrong for it. And we spend all of this energy reacting against that judgment. And integrity is the gift of, like, I always love the metaphor of kintsugi, the
Pottery.
Japanese art. Yeah, and we fill that crack with gold. We repair the vessel that's been broken. We turn the poison into medicine. We take the time that's needed to see what we need to heal internally, inwardly, and see what we can do to support the external and make something more beautiful than when it was a cracked or when it was whole, when it was perfect, when it was this like original vessel. Because the pain in my life, the struggle in my life, the disease in my life, the losing of loved ones, the realizing how much I had hurt people in my life, knowingly and unknowingly, has shattered who I thought I was. And putting those pieces back together and being honest with them, honest with my harm, and honest of the harm that was caused to me, has made me a more interesting person who's hobbled together of these broken pieces of my old identity, but it's become something more beautiful. And I think that's the integrity is creating a value, like walking my value system, not expecting to be perfect or that everyone else will be perfect, but the city of perfection means we're perfect in our perfecting. It is in our choice to walk a line of integrity that we create integrity. And that's a constant relationship with each person and environment and biome that I meet. What is the most serving integral? What's the architecture that I could support here? And the rushing mind that I'm working on and healing is like, or like entering in a new space. Ooh, what can I do to fix this? Versus how can I serve an integral structure of this biome that I'm entering, or this conversation I'm entering, or this business I'm entering? And then I make a choice, and that can be a moral and ethical choice, even in a world that is still perfecting. Because I think we can all admit the world ain't perfect. But what if it's designed, like you said, what if life is testing us, trusting us, helping us to grow into that walk of integrity? And if I have the willingness to face my own judgments, the judgments of others, and the judgments I have of others, I can then appreciate, like make more value by giving loving attention, appreciate the vessel that we're creating together. And that for me is lasting integrity instead of stuck cage of integrity, of the idea of integrity.
Would you say that like integrity for you, for example, will potentially look and feel different than what I will feel? So is that inherent? Like, where does it come from? Your interpretation of that, right? And is there a common, because like then it goes into morals, right? Like, can we agree on moral, like a moral code or something that we all relate to? And when we are in integrity, or
Mm.
is it completely blank for everyone and we color the palette ourselves, right?
Deep question. I mean, I certainly don't have an answer, but what that struck in me is I do absolutely feel that my value system and my what I would consider integrity, I know for a fact is different than other people. And luckily, I've just been tuning to what does my pillar say? And trusting that even if the decision that the we creates isn't what I would have created, if I don't compromise my pillar, I can still make outer diplomatic changes. But if I compromise that inner pillar and collapse that inner pillar, the structure won't be sustainable. Even if it was the right choice externally, it doesn't matter because it wasn't a true choice for me. And that's been difficult because I've been part of collectives and groups and even family systems where it's like I don't want to make that decision. That's not correct if I was the one or the only one driving the ship here. And that I think everybody has that about like their government or the world. It's like if I was in charge, right? That energy of like, oh, what I would do in this situation would be different. But we aren't. We are in a biome. We are in a collective organism of many different thought forms. And I don't think, I do think there's an inherent sense of integrity that I've cultivated and learned, but it has to adapt. It has to take in new knowledge and digest that. But I think that I have a different radar than other people, and some of that's opinion, and some of that's bias, and some of that's conditioning, some of that's age or where you're at in the cycle. Your values change. I keep hearing that from parents of like, as soon as you have that child, your whole worldview can change for many people, right? So that shouldn't be a moral, that's a orientation to the world. But I do think we have to discover, that's why I use that integral structure, because structures are helpful, like clear guidelines and agreements and covenants that we make, and contracts that we make with each other. We need to create a series of communications with each other, even when our worldviews differ. And that's where I think that I can still make a choice that might be an outer compromise that doesn't mean I think we always have to compromise. That's a bit of what I'm learning about integrity, into-gritty. You have to get into the gritty of the fact that life isn't perfect, not in that way. So it's not always going to fit in my bubble of what I think is right or what you should do or what they should do. And that's actually back to what is humanity. Humanity is adapting to many different perspectives and new data coming in. And so I would say for me, the common piece could be how do we move to, like for me, kindness is a huge value that I think that many people could find again. And kindness doesn't mean give everyone everything it doesn't mean niceness even. Kindness can be, compassion
Mm-hmm.
is more
Mm-hmm.
of a usual word, right? But kindness has a texture to it. And when I approach conflict with kindness, and that can include an absolute no, 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 then the only love here, and that this boundary is clear and a container, and that will not be passed. And I can still do that with compassion. That is a value system that I think starts to stretch beneath individuals' realities, and I think will help us find integral containers even with opposite worldviews, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Makes total sense. And, like these guidelines and frameworks, the scaffolding of existence that we as a society may agree to or disagree with, that's the point. Like, it is something that we can put in the ground and we can look at and feel into. And then we feel dissonance or resonance or whatever it is that we're feeling, but we're feeling something. And then I feel like that is also within relationships, relationship to self as well, where I'm like, yeah, that exactly. If I don't have values, if I don't know what's true and important to me, I won't have a chance of like even feeling into if like the environment I'm in is in resonance with me or not. Like I don't have a I don't have a resonance body, right? I have nothing that bounces the frequency back and forth. And so
Mm.
I feel that's why for me a value is like truth, and truth is like with a lowercase t, right? Like my truth, and that's also what we always say when we go into these containers and doing these weekends. Like one of the agreements is for like H is honesty. Like we are here to be honest, and that doesn't mean like I don't have the truth. I just have my truth, right? And that doesn't have to be liked by anyone else. It just has to be true to me. And with that clarity, others can see me clearly and I can see others clearly, right? And so, like you said, right? And then it goes one step further. It's like, okay, that being the case, then we can work on diplomacy, like these higher frequencies and these like, okay, like how can we master communication? How can we master being in communion around these different views and still be in a potentially loving connection with one another and live amongst each other, right? And not against. So, yeah, beautiful. Integrity, yeah.
I really love what you said there too. Is I want to name that of like the intelligence isn't just my truth or your truth. The intelligence is now in the relationship of multiple truths and or of different perspectives and people. And like that I think is what gets lost in conflict often is we're not listening to the intelligence
Yep.
of what these two worlds coming together can mean. And I love that your evolution is intolerance to understanding to forgiveness, just to bring that like magic of here you are dancing in containers, creating that line two, these one on one and group, and then line four, your group containers, to hold that message, I assume, by feeling it from you, this message of deep understanding and forgiveness by taking the patterns of the mind and then attuning to the intelligence of the relationship. And I think that's really the work that we get to do as humans is we are communicators. That's one of our magical superpowers as a species, that every species communicates, but we can pack so much communication into very small amounts of space time, and the potential of that is to create a lot of beauty, and the detriment of that is to be in intolerance and in reaction and in that this separation. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, true. Yeah, when I'm looking at it, I just came out of the Golden Path activation sequence, and yeah, I had a way easier time contemplating the right side. So like, yeah, I guess there's much to say, much to say about that. Whereas the left one, like the radiance and the purpose one, they were much more subtle. I mean, the purpose one was better for me, but I had a really hard time with the radiance. I don't know if that's common, but
It is. It's more hidden, right? But I
yeah.
also think that that jinky of deafness is gonna have its own. I'm curious if you ever hit a struggle with it. Like, did something come up in interference with that key for you?
Well, I mean, there was like a very direct or simple connection that I made where it was just like, why am I? Because I love music, so that's why I listen. I'm listening to a lot of music, aka I'm wearing a lot of headphones, walking around with headphones, and I'm like, I can't even hear what's going on. I
Mm,
can't even hear what is going on around me, And then on top, like noise canceling headphones. Like, what is that? I'm deaf
wow.
to the world. So then I started listening when going for a walk or whatever, and that changed. So deafness, in the sense of maybe not hearing enough, but then again also hearing too much, and
Yeah.
listening too much to what other people or systems or organizations or societies or whatever tell me I should be doing, looking like, whatever, acting like. And that also creates a deafness in the sense of I'm overstimulated. It's too much, you know? So those are some of my contemplations.
That's potent. I really appreciate that body example too, because it is both, right? Like I love that key because it's the noise of the world, which of course we have noise canceling so that you can tune into music or to you turn into wisdom, which is what that key is for. Is like be deaf to all but the divine, right?
Hmm.
That's one of its aspects. So we have to turn down the noise of the world because it wants to hijack our shen. It wants to hijack our energy. That's what it's for. And I don't even think that's malicious as much as it is just like parasites are part of nature. Things want your attention because that's how they survive. And so by
Mm.
canceling, there's an aspect of saying, right now, I'm going to tune into me, to God, to divine, to universe, to music, especially. What a powerful way to just tune into the universe. But then also we're humans. We also want to break down the walls. And with the line 4 there as well is the heart wall healed by its 7 sacred seals. It's healed by epiphany, by that same jinki. So breaking down the walls in the world around you means also removing those walls that keep you safe. And I love that of like, oh, I'm going to listen more, but balance, like tuning the bass and treble. It's like, where is the noise level of the universe? And also, where do I actually need to hear humanity to allow these epiphanies to break through the stuck, frozen over hearts of the world? Because if you only listen to yourself, we isolate from the healing that actually wants to happen in that collective. So I really love that example. That gives me a visceral reminder in my body of like, because it's a freak to genius key. It wants to be wildly you. That's the epiphany. Is like, I am wildly me, but we all need to be wildly us. That's the resource we're missing. So anyway, I appreciate that balance of inner and outer there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, beautiful. I mean, I mean, it. I had the greatest time. I mean, in the greatest, also the most terrifying time starting the journey. Like at the beginning of the retreat, like when it started and we went into the life's work. Like things happened. Like things
Yeah.
like my life just happened. Like it just like holy. Yeah, it really happened. Like, and then people came into my life also through the Gene Keys
Yeah.
that woke me up. And then because they've been on the journey, and I also just wanna say that like the Gene Keys community is a very beautiful community. Like it is a community that is really deep, like
Mm.
really deep in like and I mean that in the most broadest sense, because like no matter where I go and what the touch points have been with people from the Gene Keys, it never has been superficial or surface level. It always has been very distinct and very just beautiful. Like so like because the teachings, I feel like they already select who resonates with them, right? And so people who are in it, it's like these are my people. Yeah. I don't know. What is your experience like with this? I mean, you've been on the journey for much longer than I have.
I think there's the one level that immediately come up is one of the things mythically we call it the fractal, finding people on your fractal. Like there's this like resonance and chemistry, but more than that, there's an aspect of that I love of actually finding people that are very close to your soul signature, which is an exciting thing about any consciousness activity can do that because it naturally attracts people and then suddenly you're tuning into resonance. But what you're describing is what I love about our community and the globalness of the community is the very central point of the teachings is pausing to discover the gift inside the shadow, which takes courage to even want to look at the shadow at all, takes real activity, like conscious choice to pause and go deeper. So by its nature, it does cut out some of that superficial noise because you have to be interested in going deeper into this moment, which is the juiciest thing ever. That's
Yes,
what we look for in any
exactly.
relationship. So I do love that. Like that's what actually ties. And I've gotten to know as a American white boy from Texas, I've gotten to meet so many people all over the world and see, wow, different cultures, different ideas, different ways of using the gene keys or spirituality or these tools of archetypes, but also see the golden thread of, ooh, this is why we both chose to say yes to what this magic was. And that gives us a language beyond just language. And it's like, oh, there's now a courage and a contemplative process there that's exciting. So I really do resonate with that's a value that kind of stretches across these worlds.
Mm. Yeah, all the shadow hunters, or however you want to call it. Yeah, we are just addicted, to go deep. Yeah. So that being said, I asked a little bit around with people I know through the Gene Keys, and I was like, just like I'm gonna have this conversation with you. Is there anything you would like me to ask? Right? And interestingly enough, the common thing was like, I actually would love to know who is Elijah. Like who is this man? Like what's your journey been like? And I'm like, that's me. That's how I'm approaching the podcast, right? Like, yes, please. Like let's meet the human, right? So yeah, please. I just want to take up, like, open up the space for you. Like, please, if you whatever you feel like sharing, yeah, where do you come from, and what's your journey been like, and I don't know what brings you joy in your life. Yeah, all of these kind of things.
Thank you. That's very kind, and I love the invitation, even if it's slightly uncomfortable, which is always a good sign when it's like, because in a good way, I was reflecting on that of like a lot of people see me and they've heard me on calls and things, and then we get to meet in person, and it's that funny thing of I usually don't get to see their face, but I really am sharing me. I can't really lie about like this is my and in a weird way, I've taken the Gene Keys in for 15, 16 years now. And so it's like, it's part of my language. It's just part of how I've like been moving, but it's always been there before I found the Gene Keys. And it like my parents, I grew up in Texas. So I was in um, a relatively different kind of normal world suburb reality, but my parents were really deeply attuned to their own spiritual journey, and so some of my earliest memories are with tarot and with
Mm.
running past lives, like astral projection techniques that they taught me when I was a kid, and like I was open to science of mind, and these EFT was huge. I had EFT when I was in junior high, so even though I'm getting bullied for being fat and feeling weird and awkward as you be a human, I had an emotional technique to say that I love and accept myself, which I think was a huge benefit to not needing to. I mean, obviously, I've had to unpack things later in life as any good, you have to be introspective to your trauma, but I think I had a lot of gifts when I was young that I'm really grateful for of teachers and people who accepted me for being different and loved and mythical. And I always grew up with stories and myth. And so I was a film student.
Mm.
And that was really where I started to channel it into something creative. But in the middle of UT Austin, a very, beautiful school, was a program led by a trans teacher who led this experience of take risks, make stuff, be awesome. It was called the ACT Lab, and it was this let's make all of the interdisciplinary arts and create expressive arts, create art therapy, create art as a transformational process. And it quickly turned me away from filmmaking as a product to art making as a lived experience of discovery. And after that doorway opens, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. And that's been my life, is finding platforms, whether it's from deep study in Peruvian jungles and shamanism to technology like fractals and brainwave entrainment, and or just art making in a community for many 12 years holding a community of art and music. They're all just fractal doors of saying we have access to an incredible technology inside ourselves, and the discovery is the technology. Discovering ourselves is what's awakening this technology. And so the Gene Keys just slotted right into this mythical framework to give people, I'd been studying Kabbalah and astrology and things like that, but I didn't like astrology. I didn't like being put in boxes. So it was a particular flavor that said, here, I'm going to open this doorway, but your journey of self illumination is what is at the core. Um, so I just love to explore these like artistic mediums of that ecstatic discovery process. And these days, less and less for a purpose, less and less for an end goal, other than shared heart connection, other than like growing more beauty, growing more gardens, making more beauty. But there's a bit of like over the years, I think my younger self was striving to be complete, was shadow hunting, was very like I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
dig
Mm-hmm.
into every trauma, I'm gonna break every boundary, I'm gonna go there. And now the Tao has softened and I kind of sit by the river a bit more of like life is, it's still precious. It's repeatless. It's a precious moment that we have. And so I want to use it well, but I want to use it without striving that causes inflammation, the striving that constricts, the striving that needs something. And art has always been my teacher for that because I don't really need to be on the Hollywood star or something like that. It's like that's not the goal of art making. Um, yeah, that's my rambling story of like art,
Mm.
but that's the texture that I've been seeking in many different modalities, I think, over the years.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Um, who has been an impactful person in your younger life?
Mm. I had two. My parents were amazing to hold like different aspects, but I also had the gift of having two godfathers. And one was a OTO magician who I didn't know that till years later that he was like a trained Kabbalist magician, but it was loved science fiction and fantasy and helped me through like introduced me to things like D&D and movies, a rich movie library, and would just sit with me in story. And I had the other godfather who was a blues drummer, a famous, like a really talented blues drummer who didn't use drugs and substances, like had been in that world and was this incredibly sober, healthy influence and just the spirit of music, And so I had that music and story influence, and to have people that care for you that aren't your parents, because like we obviously have our own individuation journey you need with your parents, with your blood parents, but to kind of have a little in the middle of Texas, in the middle of the suburbs, to have a magical village around me was really powerful. To have those kind of mentors that were just humans doing their thing, but they gave those gifts and they were very impactful for me.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. And now I'm sure that the tables have turned and many people will say your name when saying and naming impactful people on their lives. I know of two already that I talked to. Um, and yeah, beautiful. So what happened then? What happened then?
Obviously the huge formative years of my adult life have been with One Door Land, which was our art and music community. And so I was on a journey. I literally, there was about 2 years of my life, I call it my lucid dream years. I lived my life as if I was in a lucid dream, and it was phenomenal. It was extremely
Sounds awesome.
diverse, little ungrounded, but I got to teach intermodal expressive arts in Switzerland for 2 summers. I got to tour throughout the Pacific Northwest. Literally, our tour was called the High Frequency Tour. It was "What is your genius? Share your genius in 3.5 minutes." This is way before or right before I found the Gene Keys, and so we'd meet these amazing people just sharing their unique gifts, and that led me on that fractal journey, and eventually falling in love and creating community. And the magic of Wonderland was all about improv, art, music. So we, at the time, the Gene Keys was kind of in the background. The book had been written, but the Golden Path wasn't out yet. So the profile, we'd have to go to Jovian Archive, and the partner who had been to all the workshops would hand draw all of our charts. And we spent years doing improv comedy of the Shadow Gift City. We made the deck. We just lived and breathed. We made art and paintings and music, and it was the perfect trinity for when you're living in community. It gets rough and tumble quickly. Even dirty dishes suddenly become my parents abandoned me
Yeah.
fights. Like it's quick to be thick. And the Gene Keys was instantly, we didn't have a guru. We weren't in an ashram. We were, our own kind of spiritual psychonauts on our own journey of discovery. And the Gene Keys was suddenly a trilogue. It was like, we can have our dynamic, but together we're going to look inward at this wisdom without it being a guru or a Bible or a set. It was a discovery teaching. And so to use that with music and art was just phenomenal, and ups and downs as any good juicy community does. And we created from that place, and I think it was a very special. It's 12 years of my life. It was a very special container, and it slowly brought in tea. It became a central part of our practice, and improv music where you'd practice. Anybody can practice singing and being life as art, not just perfected art, but being in the art making process. And then eventually meeting Richard and beginning to merge our art realms with the Gene Keys, and creating. And we created some beautiful events that became like the Seven Sacred Seals and the Epiphany, and these like gatherings to invoke that. And through my journey, I got to be good friends with Richard, which has been an amazing wizard friendship now for many years, and started to step in as I have these other skills that I had been learning and cultivating around the digital world. Which I guess the side quest there is that I've spent many years studying different indigenous practices as well, and long dietas in Peru, and I've always had to balance these like two sides of me that just wants to disappear and sing with the plants and just be part of nature, and this scientist of me that learned about the brain and neuroscience and biology and wants to create practical tools for the everyday person that's inside this world. And the Gene Keys invited that of me, of here's both these mythical and practical tools. And so I started building the websites and working on the programs and
Yeah.
designing the programs. And now, years later, I'm grateful to be one of its leaders and just holding this with a whole team now. We've just expanded into this incredible team, and see the next step of applying these teachings. And I'll end this with that's my favorite part of where I'm at now, is I'm watching a team of people in business, in commerce, in marketing, choosing to engage these teachings at many different levels, not just in the obsessed kind of nerdy addicted levels that you can be with the Gene Keys, that behavior where you're devoted to it, but in very real ways choosing to apply this technique inside the difficult places of a world that is on fire in many ways. And that kind of has been a culmination for me of doing that in community, now doing that in an organism, in a non-local organism, in a global community, and now this next chapter kind of bringing that back into a local environment for my own health and well-being, but also to model what I hope the rest of the world will keep doing, is to take these transpersonal teachings and plant seeds with them in very local, real, grounded, human, intimate ways, which is what I loved about community and I'm grateful to kind of be returning to.
Yeah, I mean, I wondered how it must be to work in a place like the Gene Keys, as in the company, right? Like, how do we have to imagine that? Are you all like, yeah, you're doing a daily check-in and you're doing some sort of, I mean, there's so many texts, right? So many beautiful prayers, like the prayer with the good work or something. Is it called?
I do love that one.
Yeah.
That comes out on special occasions when because it's such a dear one to me, the prayer of the good work. In the best way, we're very normal. I just want to like name that of like the Jinkies does that. It makes things very mystical sometimes until you get back to mystical ordinariness. And then it's simpler and it's more authentic. And I think I've been through my personal wave of performative spirituality. I am a performer, so of course like I naturally went through waves of my ego and my vanity, and not that I don't have ego and vanity, but I've mellowed parts of it. But being with humans and being like, wow, this got difficult, this got stressful, that decision impacted a whole bunch of people, and we're the ones cleaning it up. Like, we're there in the real, because the best thing, it's not so profound, it's that we care. Our support team reads like every single line that people write in. We spend way too much time, hours of time, trying to address some of the smallest things because every single person genuinely cares. And that is probably the most magical thing. And we care about each other. Like, I'm an overworking Capricorn, and my team is like, you gotta stop that. Like, they hold me accountable to practices that a business mind would just be like, no, we need to grind harder, or no, it's not allowed because of XYZ. We have to do that. We have to have real boundaries with each other. We have to have professional boundaries and legal boundaries and all of those things.
Yeah.
But there's humans interacting with it and being willing to face into some of these harder, things that can come up just by being in the world. So I think that's really what has been magical is like we do obviously have levels of check-in, but we're also all over the world, all over time zones. It's been a stretch to learn how to like it would almost be easier in some ways if I was in a boardroom with people and we could have a cup of tea together. And we get to do that sometimes in small ways. But it's teaching my brain and my body how to hold coherence all the time. And I don't mean that I'm perfect. I mean like holding and intending a field of coherence throughout time, location, space. And I think that my team, what I love about them is they do that with a lot of joy and a lot of laughter and a lot of care. And that's really what the Jinkies, back to what we started with creativity. There's a sense of that, okay, we've got something. How do we approach it with creativity? How do we approach it with integrity? How do we approach it with kindness? How do we apply the Jinkies approach to that? But we're also the first ones that have to learn those lessons. And I think that's what's so beautiful and humble about the Jinkies is if you're going to work in transformational business, any transformational business, you better be ready that you have to transform. And like we're at the coalface of, whoa, I did not pause and integrate that. I will be the first to name that. Like, whoa, I just totally overrid all of the teachings I'm trying to model because I got stressed. And at least it's transparent of like, okay, we're learning. That's where I can grow. That's where I can adjust. Yeah.
Yeah, I really resonate with that. Like, I've always been 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the corporate world, for example. With 1 foot, I was in there, and then with the other one, I was in some spiritual monastic kind of like lifestyle. And I feel, the Gene Keys also have been a way for me to translate or like embody both, right? And to bring them together in a way that with Richard as someone who, acts as an embodied figure of that movement, or just like the messenger, who does that in a very beautiful way. And so do you. And like I said, everyone that I've met on the Gene Keys path, Most of them have a job.
Yeah, yeah.
and that is and that is and that is in some spiritual communities quite rare. They live in the forest or something. But with the gene keys, like I found those to be like people living extraordinarily ordinary lives from the outside, but then there's much depth to it, right? And so yeah, that really resonates. And also what I wanted to touch upon is a little bit like I always go to the source. That's why I'm having a conversation with you. And that's why I went to Rimini last year to meet Richard. And then that's why I fly to the Temple of the Universe and I go to Michael Singer and I talk to him. And like, I want to like interact. Like, I want to go to the source of where something is coming from and not have someone else like narrate what they have heard and then another person in between. And then like, try to get like as close to like the core as I can to feel like what does that do with me. And I would be very curious to hear from you, like how was that journey with you and Richard working so closely together, also intertwined in the roles of like you being like working alongside each other and building this thing, this business, while being friends potentially, while also maybe you learning from him, him learning from you. Like, how did that impact your relationship with him? And do you still have these moments of like, okay, Richard, just like, wow, I just listened to you and it's just interesting and I'm learning something, you know? Yeah, maybe just talk into that a little bit.
I love that. That's a really, I mean, part of that I kind of have to like digest and think about. In the best of ways, back to the magical ordinariness, in the best of ways, we're very comfortable with each other. We know each other very deeply now. We've been through challenge and breakthrough together. And so there's a level of that beautiful just communion with another human being. And why I respect Richard so deeply is because he is a mythical poet beyond all skill and profound transmission. But he's a dad and he's a husband and he likes to carve spoons and he likes to drink tea. He's the one of the kindest humans that I've met. And that was really important for me as a spiritual teacher because I am very allergic to the abuse that comes from many spiritual teachers and I was so attuned to that for many years of like, nope, that's not it, nope, clearly that's corrupt, and like it was frustrating. So when I met someone who also had wounds but had great wonders, who also liked the ordinary, in fact helped people get out of the not even out of, to combine the ecstatic nature of mysticism in the simple pleasures of life. That was a huge breakthrough, and that's where I keep having moments of awe is we'll just be drinking tea by the river and just communing with life, and a little bit of like the lessening of needing something from a very wise person to being grateful to be in the stream of wisdom with. And I think that's a really important part of the gene keys is that it gives tools that bring that focus in order to kind of booby trap you back into relaxing. And that's, I think, a little bit of the joy of working with Richard is like these profound doorways open up, and we have fun in the wizardry of it. I love to like, oh wow, he sent me a document today. He's just like, here's my brain dump of this whole next chapter, and it's like, whoa, I can open up this doorway and I get to explore a vast synthesis. And then it can also be as simple as a cup of tea. And I think that is the most treasured part of my relationship with him, at least. Yeah.
Mm, man, so beautiful. Sounds exciting. Um, I I feel like, and I also know that like there's quite a few and a lot of change coming with the Gene
Yeah.
Keys. Um, yeah, what's that about? What's happening?
We've been working for years sculpting these different experiential journeys and next levels, and things, the life takes you down turns and takes you down eddies, and the labyrinth shears the like little dead ends sometimes. But for me, it's been a decade long journey of this particular app journey. And it's not just like the websites on an app. It's a journey, it's an experience, it's a aesthetic, it's a whole new journey into the synthesis, and we're extremely excited that that's finally hitting its birth portal. We're like in the canal right now with the bugs and the final little tweaks and things, and that comes alongside wanting to. Richard is a great, he's an incredible. Exquisiteness is a really important word, and like I found my edge as a designer 5 years ago. I would have never called myself a designer. I got kind of tricked into keep holding these roles that were design based. But I obviously had a deep connection to the material, and but now we've been with as the team grows, we've been able to up level certain areas to hit this exquisiteness that we've always wanted. And so the new website will be on a new platform, which is really important with the age of technology speeding up, that we can adapt more easily. But it's still very curated. It's not just, generated instantly. It's like bringing in these threads and still bringing together what we've built over the last 20 years of this material without losing that quality, but also hopefully making a new doorway to the next ring of community that might have been at the edge or might not have found us yet, but will resonate with what you were describing, this incredible heart-based community. And unlike we've been reflected recently, like the level that we've been able to grow without paying influencers, without having venture capital. Like we've grown genuinely organically from
Hmm.
word of mouth and from the content, and like the what we come together as a community to do, not just the media content, but like the substance of the synthesis. And that's really been inspiring. So we've been growing again, integrity. I want to grow, and superabundance expansion is one of my keys as well. I want to grow without diluting the essence, and that's kind of what this next quantum leap is. We have to grow one level bigger to hold what we already have in a sustainable way,
Yeah.
so that the team can grow without grow. We don't ever want to grow the company, for example. Like we call it Team 64. Team 64 is our cap. We won't have more than 64 members working for us and in us. In fact, it'll be lesser than that, because we want the community to grow and expand, and decentralize in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. It, like you say, I mean, it's part what I feel is the like DNA of the Gene Keys is like that you can feel that, like the genuine care that you can feel the people are working with, and that transpires in the frequency that the whole business emanates. And me as a consumer and as a customer who pays for the products, um, yeah, just it feels good to for me to spend money on the Gene Keys, like you know what I mean? And
And
yeah, and
I appreciate that, because
yeah,
I that's how I live my life as well, and I'm really grateful that that's the resonance.
yeah, and at the same time, like, yeah, for sure. I always love, I love the marketing of the Gene Keys, and the strongest marketing. Yeah, it's just like, just take me as an example. Like I've been a walking billboard for the Gene Keys, and you haven't paid me. Like none of you have paid me to do that, but like I'm genuine. Like like as soon as I can spark that someone is like interested in themselves, it just it's just interwoven in my path. So that's why I have to bring it up, and that sells, because like people like they feel my enthusiasm, and then that creates a movement, right? And that there's like, because I even partially studied business administration and marketing, and like that's what they say, right? Like word of mouth is the most powerful marketing that there is. You have people who speak from their own experience about what they've learned and what they've grown into. And yeah, and the Gene Keys are just something. Yeah, I've just never come across anything like it, really. It's the depth and the like the perfect like harmony. It's just like everyone, like anyone who like in the slightest has interacted with the Gene Keys, like has to realize that this can come from like a cognitive, intellectual, ego based human who thought about something. No, this is like coming through from somewhere else, and it's been like imprinted in a way that we as humans with language and visuals can interact with, and that's like awesome. That's so great. And I'm so forever grateful to have found it, because I know how many people are so lost in the world. They don't
Yeah.
have a tool, they don't have people to talk to, they don't have a community. Like, and for me, it's just like that I was able to find that so early on in my life, and then have the resources and even speak the language to be able to interact with it, and now sit here with you. All of these kind of things. It's just amazing. Like, it's just amazing. Yeah, that's what I feel.
Thank you. It's incredible to feel because like it's so clear you're expressing your genius out into the world, and that's like the real mission of the Jinkies. Like there's a business that wants to support the teachings going out there, but the mission of the Gene Keys is for individuals, empowered relationships, empowered individuals, empowered communities, expressing their limitless love, their genius unbound. And that's the real reason why I'm still here, kind of in this particular modality, is that is its drive. And I think that that's what's so important of even like, oh yeah, the marketing tools of course, open, what is it, word of mouth is so important, but word of mouth doesn't come from an intention to market. It comes from what you're describing, and that means impact is happening. And that's the greatest feedback. Like when we get writings coming in of like, wow, what this did in my relationship in this way. Like it's not just like, wow, I love this, which is also beautiful, but it's like, wow, this impacted something very real in my life that didn't have access to before. And it's never just the Gene Keys. But if the teachings are doing their part to help that, oh, that just lights me up. That's really why I love and keep coming back to this work. And really excited that we got to like meet because I know that you are bringing this genius out into these containers, which I think is really what is needed next. And that's something as the evolution of the Gene Keys, where like we do these big online retreats. They're amazing, and they channel collective energy. But humanity needs intimate containers, and that requires all of us in a way, right? And like you being that out in the world is so critical, and more people finding out I can hold that little container. It might just be with my family or my best friend, or it might be in groups and things like that. But that's how I think this net holds itself. This Indra's net begins to hold itself in harmony, in integrity. Um,
Absolutely. Like, and you'll love this. Like, I just, whenever I'm holding space for men, and I work within Sacred Sons, like one of the biggest organizations within men's work, and we have big gatherings like all across the states and nearly on all continents, and men are really healing and doing the work, and it's amazing. And when I'm facilitating, like I'm facilitating with the help of the Gene Keys. Like, they inspire me. They inspire me in space holding. Like when I'm doing guided meditations or something, like I talk about simplicity. I'm talking about the genie in us, the genius, the quest we are on, the questions, like all of these kind of things that I've learned through the Gene Keys, like forgiveness. What does that mean to you, brother? Like, share. Come on, what does forgiveness mean to you? And then you can truly understand like where are you being intolerant towards yourself? Like all of these kind of stuff. It all comes from the Gene Keys, and that's like it's lived and embodied through me now, but I can see it with people that I talk to, and then I just like, and I sprinkle a little bit in there, and then they take it on their own paths, right? And then they come back to me 6 months later, and they're like, oh man, like the chemistry that I found, like I looked up my girlfriend on the Jinkies thing, and we have the passionate chemistry, and man, and I watched the video, and I was like, great, that's awesome. That is awesome. That lights me up. Yeah. So talking about that in particular, uh, quickly, how are we on time? Like, do you have, yeah?
Uh, yeah, a couple more minutes. I have to hop at the half hour. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, okay. I've I have a personal question I want to ask, but I also want to ask about. I want to talk a little bit and ask a little bit about the Venus work. Also
Hmm.
with the Venus sequence coming up. Why is this? I feel like everyone talks differently about the Venus work, like it's with even more reverence to it. Why do you feel that is?
There's no greater portal to everything that is broken and hurt and profound and deep than relationships, than love. Business, we hunt to survive. There's a root survival of growth and purpose, but when your heart breaks, there's a flood of energy there. And when your heart yearns for connection, there's some of the most serene and sacred moments. And so the Venus sequence is, of all of the sequences, is governed by the mother of grace, of taking ourselves to the core wound, to these deep encoded patterns of betrayal, of shame, of guilt, of feeling isolated and abandoned. It's these deep core principles that are actually connected to our global shadows that lead to war and
Hmm.
famine and all of these like destructive tendencies that we have. So it's the deepest work. It's the most difficult sometimes, but it's also what leads to these ecstatic states of love and connection and our purpose coming alive in relationship. So we have to hold it with deeper sacredness because it actually walks you through your childhood, right? The incarnation cycles as you were born, and then 0 to 7 and 7 to 14 and 14 to 21. It's asking us to look at our relationship triggers, and not just get a divorce because it's difficult. Not that that's a wrong thing, but you need to be careful. It's hard to talk about relationships without being very dangerous because now we're empowering toxic behavior, or we're enabling toxic behavior, or we're hiding from the fact that those patterns live in me. And so you have to be very careful with these relationship dynamics. So the sacredness isn't just to put flowers on top of something that is difficult. It brings you to your knees when you really see those patterns. I think you know that in your life when you really face that difficulty and that challenge. Sacredness is a remembrance of life is sacred and love is sacred, and we're held even in our darkest pain. That's the beauty that for me I've discovered inside that. So I have to be careful, like with the Gene Keys, because we always had this joke of it's more than just a book club. We used to just read the Gene Keys, right? We would get together and you read the Gene Keys, and then, like you said, stuff comes up. As soon as you put your attention to these codes, life throws up these very real
Yep.
examples. And the Venus sequence, I think, is that times 10. If you enter this place with humbleness and love and excitement and but truth, it will be a wild ride. And I do that with a lot of care of like, hey, remember, this is you choosing to go on this journey. It will be phenomenal. It's one of those things that bats a thousand. Like the breakthroughs that can occur are unbelievable, but it does take the courage to kind of go into the temple of our wounds.
Yeah, I am looking at my profile and I'm like, okay, here we go. Uh,
Which is why it's more fun to do it together. You're not alone,
mm,
even though you're going to be in there.
yeah, it's gonna be me alone in bed at night with my SQ.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, yeah, I can feel that. I can feel it in the collective field, really. I can feel that. That this is like deep stuff, and yeah, like the chemistry lines are beautiful. Like they really they're spot on with many people I've met.
That's
Not
an exciting part that's gonna, you haven't even seen the other spheres, and this is the first time we're doing the Venus with chemistry out. So you'll get to see, because it is important to see, like, oh, that's the intelligence happening between us. I can work on my stuff, you can work on your stuff, we can and discover this intelligence together. So I'm really glad to hear already the resonance, because that's the exciting part for me, is we're at this threshold of actually getting to do not just the individual, but really see these codes in action together with these chemistries.
They love, like, people love that. That's the first thing they ask. Like, yeah, because I know it from myself. Like, I want to, like, if I'm seeing someone, if I'm in love, I want to know
Yeah,
the chemistry. Like,
of
I want to know the
course.
chemistry. Like, of course. I want to know the shadows, and I want to know the gifts, you know? I want to I want to see it. Um, okay. Calm down, Maxi. I noticed something at the beginning of the conversation, and I wanted to take it back to that and end it with that. What does fatherhood mean to you? And yeah, what does that bring up for you?
Instantly, it brought up terror, which I think is a beautiful thing to include in the initiation. As you know, like, initiations are a critical part of our development, and like stepping into these. So it's beautiful that my belly did a little backflip. I'm grateful that fatherhood for me has meant, through my father, has meant um, a consistent, devoted care over the long time. Like I think of grandfather cactus. I think of like one-legged trees. I think of this strength that takes time, that is seeing a longer cycle. And when I'm younger, in my younger mind, it's about the breakthroughs, it's about the change, it's about the insights. And when I think of the love over time, that's an initiation that I think parents go through, that I'm excited to go through in my own life, to look down at a young sapling and be in a different position. But right now, what it means to me is gratitude for strength and wisdom and kindness and compassion that is designed to be over the long time of something, the way that I feel like divine fatherhood. And I know that not all of our experiences of fatherhood necessarily are that, but we're held by that level of love. That's what comes up for me right now.
Thank you for sharing. And thank you for this conversation, Elijah. Yeah, it's been a great pleasure.
My pleasure as well. Thank you.
Really. And I'm very excited for everything that come, both from you personally, individually, collectively with the Gene Keys. Thank you, like, also for your work and everything that you've been doing and how you show up. And it's genuinely impacting a lot of people, and it has had tremendous effect on my healing and well-being. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, beautiful listener, you have made it all the way through. And I want to take a moment to say thank you. And you can do me an enormous favor. It's all I'm going to ever ask from you. And that is to go to your podcast app right now. And if you enjoyed the episode, give the podcast a 5-star rating. If you want to write 1-2 words or sentences, even more powerful, even better. Thank you, already in advance. And also, while you're at it, just click on that follow button, on that bell notification, so that you never miss a new episode. All of that just contributes, and it helps me to increase the reach of the podcast. That means I can attract bigger guests, and that means I can deliver more powerful episodes. So it's a tiny thing. I'm only gonna ask this little favor of you ever, not more. 10-15 seconds of your time, couple of clicks, that's it. Makes a huge difference for me as a creator. So thank you so much.